Welcome back to the corner, everyone. I'm the DM as always, and today we got some more Ashes of Creation. Now, this one is also from Nice Gaming, and the reason why I want to look at it is because he says this is an honest review. Now, Nice Gaming is a Ashes of Creation content maker. That's what his channel is sort of geared around. So, the thing I want to find out is this an actual honest, unbiased review, or is it not? Now, I will say straight out the gate, if I hear anything about a sponsorship from Ashes of Creation in this video, the honest part of this review is going to immediately be gone. Now, I don't know if he's ever done an AOC sponsorship before. I'm just saying that is going to be my thoughts behind it.
Hello gamers, it's Nice. I
Let's
hope
see.
everyone's still holding out hope for the MMO genre is having a nice day. Today, I wanted us to explore Phase 1 of the Alpha 2 test for MMO Ashes of Creation by developer Intrepid Studios. I gave my initial thoughts after getting a couple of days to play the pre-alpha 2, but want this video to be an all-encompassing one with a fair and honest review after about 100 hours played. While it's not a secret that I'm a big fan of this project and believe in it, I don't think having you all just listening to another AOC glazing session with no constructive feedback will do anyone, including the developers, a service. Thus, I hope you enjoyed this honest review of Ashes of Creation as we dive into the current state of Alpha 2 and what it means for its future. Before we begin, please keep in mind that this is just my opinion, but feel free to voice yours in the comments as I'll be reading them all. But keep in mind this game is in its early alpha phase with a ton of missing features. If you're new, please consider subscribing to stay up to date on all things Ashes of Creation. Now let's begin. MMO Ashes of Creation is currently just in its phase 1 of its Alpha 2 test, focusing on networking and stability. For phase 1, testing is limited to just weekends, and we just concluded our 4th weekend of testing at the time of this review. With the huge amount of ambition and design Ashes looks to bring to the MMORPG genre, there will be responses centered in both hope and skepticism. This indie MMO has been in development for years, with the developers starting with a very small team and eventually building up to the size of 200 plus employees today. A common criticism that I see is that the Alpha 2 simply doesn't have enough to show currently with how long it's been in development. This usually doesn't factor in the small size of the team or COVID or things like that, and this is usually in reference to systems and missing features, but it's mostly highlighted when you take a look at the current playable area in this world known as Verra. And I'm not here to defend this. Alpha 2 launched with not even a full Riverlands biome and small slices of both the tropics and desert biome.
Now, I want to pause right here real quick and just talk a little bit about game development. So first and foremost, this is a MMO. It is the intent with MMOs is that the map, once it is actually fully released, is absolutely massive, right? There are tons of areas. Keep in mind, this is alpha, which means it's like they have put in enough for it to be playable. And that's about it. And then they are working on it as the alpha continues. Or at least that is what is supposed to be happening, right? That is what you would expect from an alpha game, whether it's an MMO or not, right? Additionally, as he says, you have to keep in mind the size of the team when it first sort of was being created. It had a very small team. It now has about 200 people or so, from what he says. So we have to keep that in mind. I don't know off the top of my head exactly how long this game has been in development. But keep in mind, most games that come out nowadays, most like AAA games, are in development for about 3 years and are still like half-baked shit products. And games like Baldur's Gate 3, for example, was in development for 7 years. 7 years before it was actually released. And when it was released, it was a masterpiece.
whilst not being exactly overflowing with content, right? While we've always known the Riverlands would be the main focus of this test, if you would have asked me back in January if this was the Alpha 2 we were getting as far as biomes, missing systems, and missing features previously even shown like the freeholds and this whole phases thing, I just would not have believed you. So this is a fair criticism in my opinion, but instead of just focusing on what's missing
yes,
and what's coming in later phases, let us discuss what is here. Something I want to stress as I give this review is progress. I feel the rate at which Intrepid shows progress throughout this Alpha 2 phase will be much more important to focus on and much more telling than any content or lack thereof currently. What do I mean by that? Well, how stable is the server?
Before he gets into that, I want to state that the progress that Intrepid Studios is making towards getting this game released depends entirely on their roadmap. So let me pull up their roadmap real quick. So on the Ashes of Creation website, you can find this, right? So they are in phase 1. So what is their roadmap, right? So by December 20th, okay, since that is when phase 2 will start, they should have their scalability, stability, performance, and progression systems already in place. It should already be there. And December 20th is 1, 2, 3, about 4.5 weeks away, right? So they still have about a month left before phase 2 begins, right? So it depends on how much progression are they making in these goals. How is their scalability for the game? How is their stability and performance for the servers of the game? And how is their progression systems? Those are important. Since progression is first, I would expect most of their progression systems to be nearly complete, nearly at where they, and by nearly complete, what I mean is almost, if not all of them, are implemented and working properly, meaning very few bugs, if any at all. Now, I know there are always going to be some bugs, but I expect very few of them because progression is not on phase 2 or phase 3.
Server performance
Same
and
with the other
seamless
stuff.
server meshing compared to week 1. Almost a night and day difference. It's an alpha, so it's understandable that there is bugs, but how many bugs have been squashed? Too much to count. How well is the developers listening to player feedback? Well, I've seen more communication and interaction from these developers to their player base than I see with most live service games ran by established studios. They've listened to player feedback at every opportunity. You even see GMs like actually interacting with players, which is really cool. I recently posted a video about Asmongold's first time loading into Ashes of Creation. He was met with immediate griefing due to the lack of protection for new players. Only but 2 days later, Intrepid was able to implement a lot of systems to prevent this from happening again. They made it so guards can attack you as soon as you flag for PvP, and not only just if you're corrupted as a result of having already killed a player, because I mean by then it's too late, right? They also added a system to
Hang on, I want to read this because he didn't. So looting another non-corrupted player corpse now flags you as a combatant. Okay. The looting window has been updated to make the potential dangerous action more clear. Added a 1-minute PvP protection option for characters resurrecting at an Ember Spring, so this can help against spawn camping. That's good. Guards will now attack characters flagged for PvP. This includes both combatant and corrupted characters. That's good. Anyone who has the PvP flag should be attacked by guards unless that town specifically is a PvP town. Like if that town is specifically designed for PvPers, that is the only time where they shouldn't be immediately attacked. However, they should if they attack another player inside of that town.
of having already killed a player, because I mean by then it's too late, right? They also added a system to where you are optionally immune to PvP through level 5. and this is to prevent griefing of low-level players, and they also continue to make corruption penalties even harsher and harsher via the Blight system.
Now, the thing I want to know about this is what happens at level 5 that makes it so that your character is considered capable of participating in PvP, right? So, like, why is level 5 the I can't think of the right word, but basically what I'm wanting to know is why is level 5 the cutoff point? Like, what makes level 5 the defining level for this? That's what is it. If it's an arbitrary number, that's fine. I don't actually, my opinion will not change based off of the reasoning. I just want to know what that reasoning is.
They essentially made the quote starter zone safe. This was, of course, things Intrepid Studios had already planned, but of course it was moved up in the timeline because of, well, you know, the whole Asmongold situation.
To be fair, it should not have been the Asmongold situation that got them to do this. This should have been something that was implemented on day one.
I feel it is fair and easy to focus on the fact that Asmongold's negative first experience was a missed marketing opportunity simply due to a few bad actors. I think it's also fair that we acknowledge how quickly the core issue was fixed. I'm sure we've all played fully released MMOs with bad issues that lingered on for a very long time before being fixed, or is just still not fixed to this day. Even with the new player experience not being a huge focus of this test, I do think that preventing griefing of new players is important simply for tester retention. The new player experience isn't exactly done well currently, like the quest to get your mount doesn't really tell you that it's for your mount, at least from my understanding. I don't know, I skipped that horrible AI acting that may have told me, but even in that regard, they've made steps in the right direction, like adding new alternative starting areas, which has also helped the server load by having players less congested on one server runner. And I'm not sugarcoating it, but I do think that focusing on the progression that Intrepid has made and the mistakes that they have learned from is important here. Next, I want to switch gears here.
I wouldn't say focusing on those are important, but I understand where he's coming from. So far, this has been, from what I can tell, unbiased. And it has been an honest
and
review.
Talk about leveling as well as combat. I feel combat is the saving grace of this test. Even in this alpha state, I feel this is some of the best combat I've played. I won't rant about it too much here, and I've just done that in too many videos now, but essentially it's a tab target game. But as a melee player using the action camera, I think some of you action Andes will enjoy it to a certain extent, depending on your taste. Combat is one of the most subjective things though, right? On another note, I started as the tank archetype, and it's some of the most fun tanking I've done as far as the tank role goes. I did upload a guide on that if you're interested in that as well. The combat feels smooth with an immense amount of custom settings and keybinds for combat just to tailor it to your specific desires, even in this early alpha state. I think combat is very, very important in an MMO, and maybe the most important thing, as it's really what you do the most. And it's even more important that you like AOC's combat because, well, the leveling isn't exactly what most people find fun depending on your preference, and there's not much questing. Leveling in MMOs typically consists of questing, completing a main quest line with maybe some optional side quests or side skill lines that you can level, sprinkled in there along with maybe some grinding or a lot of grinding. However, Ashes is like all grinding right now, as the experience rewarded from quest is simply just not comparable or as efficient as simply just grinding mobs. There is some quest, of course, like I mentioned, and even some that give okay experience, but the quest to grind ratio, while it can't or maybe shouldn't be 50-50, isn't even remotely close to each other in terms of what's more feasible to do. It's just grinding, and it's just so obvious. With Ashes of Creation being a new IP, a new world, new lore opportunities, and just a new experience, players want more. but I'm sure this changes when the story arc system comes online and more of the world is built. However, just please remove that voice acting until it's fully ready, or hire me to do it. I'll do it for free. I think the cope is that mob grinding at POI should be more efficient than questing, as the game is built around the risk versus reward mentality. Thus, players will be more motivated to have conflict and push players out of grind spots. Design and visions often change in development, but I thought this was a good clip to include from 2017. Yes, 2017, it's been that long, and yes, that is Lazy Peon.
So is the game going to be leveling through quest or through grind?
No grind.
No grind?
Grind sucks. We hate the grind.
Okay.
I mean, what is the grind, right? Like, grinding is doing the same thing over and over and over again to get to an end game that, finally the game starts.
I think we need to disassociate the word grind from time.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is a lot of time that can be spent in advancing your character in different progression paths throughout the game, whether it be through the religion, through your adventuring class, through your artisanry, through building up industry and structures. There's a lot of different things that involve a great deal of time.
Right, and then also progress your character.
And that progress your character. However, the word grind refers to repetition and refers to...
That I wasn't gonna pause during this clip, but I want it because I was waiting to see what all they said. But that is what I was going to pause it for if they didn't. Is grind is the act of doing the exact same thing in a repetitive manner. So whether that's killing the exact same mobs over and over and over and over and over and over again, or creating the exact same thing over and over and over and over and over again, that is a grind, especially when it's a slog.
Getting nowhere for a long period of time. We don't want that to ever be the feeling.
Killing the same mob for 16 hours to gain 1/4 of an experience bar.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started.
I think something...
that was like my major MMO that I played for a long time was Lineage 2, and you would die in that game, you would lose a couple percent, and 4%. It would take you literally 12 hours or 24 hours to get that back of just straight grinding. And I really just wanted to hit my head against a wall.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't a great experience.
It was not a good experience. Yeah. There were other portions of the game that I loved, but we don't ever want to have that type of experience where you're grinding. We want you to see the efforts produce fruit while you're working your way and the time you're devoting to that path you're working to.
And we want enough stuff to do in the game that you're always engaged, right? Where it's not just you go on autopilot, but that there's so many interesting things to do that you can't do them all, and
So with that being said, maybe eventually we'll see adventuring and questing better rewarded. Next, I want to talk about how social this MMO is.
So before he gets to this, I want to talk about XP rewards from things like quests, right? Most MMOs, especially when the majority of your experience typically comes from a main quest line, right? Go and save the world for the umpteenth time or whatever, right? That's where the majority of your XP comes from. And it makes sense to some extent because generally speaking, especially for the casual audience, their focus is the story. It's not the side quests or anything like that, right? However, from what I understand, AOC might not necessarily have a main quest line, at least not in the typical sense. So depending on how they want to do it, they can either put the majority of the XP you gain from questing and still have have a lot of those quests be out killing things or gathering things and having that give you XP and things like that. Or they can have the majority of the experience. They could do the opposite, where the majority of your experience is going to come from the killing of mobs, the gathering of resources, etc., 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 and then the quests only give you supplemental XP, right? Given that this game is about risk reward, the best thing that they could do for that would be to try and make it a sort of 50-50 split, where and what I mean by that is, let's say you have a quest that is go and collect 20 hides from humpback whales or whatever, right? A 50-50 split would mean that the average number of whales that you have to kill to get those hides is the same amount of XP that the quest itself is going to reward you upon completion. I think that would be a solid start.
I know everyone has a different experience, but Ashes of Creation built a huge following and community even before its Alpha 2 launch. However, something needs to be said about how social this MMO is. Similar to old school MMOs, players actually socialize. I know, it's weird. This is the stuff I've only heard about in legends and old videos that I've watched of the MMOs of past. Of course, I've been social in MMOs before, but the design decisions in this project really cause you to ascend your level of social comfortability. Best part is, this will only be more and more the case as more systems and features come online. You need other players who mastered certain artisan trades that you didn't. You need to work with fellow citizens of your node to accomplish goals, join that Discord, work together. I've seen guilds and mayors working together for the benefit of the whole server, the whole world. I think a lot of this, quite frankly, comes down to the game's difficulty, right? Take it from someone who mained The Elder Scrolls Online for a decade. That MMO is one of the most solo-friendly ones out there. I can go into PvP and be tanky while solo while still dealing great damage and have so many different ways to heal myself. And 1vx fight outnumbered like I got the start of my channel doing. And then you enter Ashes of Creation and you simply just won't perform as well without a cleric there to heal you. You simply won't sustain as well without a bard in your group. You simply won't survive without that tank to take all that aggro. And your grind and content simply won't go as well or efficient without the DPS specs and what they bring. You notice this very early on into the game too, and without a faction-based system, you're encouraged to just join a guild or look for groups before you even venture out. This is reinforced even more with that risk versus reward system we speak so much on. It doesn't mean the game isn't going to have nothing for solo players, but I think it's quite evident how social this MMO will be. There is XP debt and it really makes failure feel bad, which in turn makes success feel so good in such a long leveling process. A critique is there's a lot of basic social features missing and it can feel clunky at some times, like I don't even think we have a friends list currently, but things like that are going to be implemented soon. I mean, at least they have good customizable UI and you can make a decent chat box without sausages allowed. In our guild, we currently have like I think 6 voice channels, and if you're online, you just simply jump into a voice chat to hang out and chat and other people will join you.
So I'm going to let him finish his thought.
Usually when I'm in a large group in an MMO for PvE or PvP, I feel like I'm just doing too much and trivializing the content or objective by making it too easy by being this deep. But in this Sandpark MMO, I'm feeling right at home and comfortable with doing so, feeling comfortable and obligated to get into these large groups and work together with my fellow gamer. I now want to briefly talk about my thoughts on the POIs.
Okay, so before he gets into this, a large reason why MMOs from ye olden days were quote-unquote social MMOs was a few factors. One, it was because a lot of them were very, very grindy. But that plays into the second factor of those games existed before things like social media, before Facebook, before MySpace, before Discord, before Skype, before any of these. And so a lot of people, they got onto these games and they played them in order to have that connection with other people, in order to be able to talk with their friends and whatnot, right? And there was like a lot of downtime and whatnot in these games to be social. There was a lot of reason to be social in these games as a result of these things. Whereas now you have things like Discord, you have things like Facebook, like Twitter, whatever. And so you have all these other optional outside things where you can be social and not have it be in the game. And so as a result, a lot of games have become a lot less grindy, and it turns out, funnily enough, when you remove a lot of the grind from the game, you don't necessarily need to be as social in these games because the grind isn't there and you're not sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for things like mana and HP to regenerate. So that's why those games were considered social MMOs rather than what we have now. And that's also why a lot of games from before felt, or that's why a lot of games from now compared to before are a lot more solo friendly. It's because that grind has been stripped away and removed.
And mob design. I want to apologize for not streaming this past weekend, but I really wanted to focus on just gaming, just leveling, and just building a relationship with my guild as we get people geared and leveled up and grow closer. Shout out to the Syndicate Guild. We recently did our first run through the most difficult and entertaining POI, the Tower of Carfen. We were very underleveled for this, so it was really fun to work together and coordinate to make this happen. I think this POI is well done, very spacious, and reminds you of what an open world dungeon truly means.
By the way, I just want to talk about that trade window real quick because you have to confirm twice, and before you can confirm the second time, the accept button gets grayed out and you can't click it for a few moments. So that way it forces the player to actually look at the trade and ensure that what has been added is actually what is supposed to be there. This was a huge problem in RuneScape where Abyssal Whips, for example, they would cost a pretty high amount when they first came out and there for a long time. And so people would put in a large amount of money that would seem like the right amount. And then you would just hit accept. But before you hit accept, they would then reduce the amount to be a significantly smaller amount, but look like it was still the same amount. And then you would get scammed that way. And they eventually changed that. So that way you have to do a double confirm. But that is good design.
No instances. Just simply walk into the dungeon and hope you're prepared. Very lovely environment and epic setting, but was definitely missing that story, you know, that narrative of why you were there, the origin of this blood magic. Why is this the way it is? Some stuff happened in previous streams, but I wish there was more named bosses with a backstory, NPCs with some dialogue, some signs you can read, stuff that you can kind of get from the environment. However, I'm sure this comes soon once again, and honestly, the music, the vibe, and overall ambiance makes up for it, I'd suppose.
This is something that can be fixed with quests. So sort of going back to the XP dilemma of like how much of a grind is this game and whatnot. Just having quests that lead you to the dungeon and run you through like what the lore is, what the story is, why you're going there and everything solves this entirely.
The focus of this game, and one of the things that really separate this MMO for the rest, is the node system. And quite honestly, when you look at all the ambitious systems and things promised about Ashes of Creation, the node system is what truly lets it stand apart. There is surprisingly more things online than I expected. I'm not a mayor currently, so I can't give you exactly that perspective, but I'll run for election next time around. I'm wanting to campaign, do debates, and tell all of global chat how I grabbed a hot Vec by the pussy. I'm kidding, but there is really more online than expected, such as the mayoral buy orders, the amount of buildings available, and more. However, with this being the main focus of the game, I am disappointed that we only have 5 nodes available and 1 node type and 1 racial node aesthetic. This I feel is honestly a disappointment, but I cannot wait to see the full technology of the node tech come online as the world expands with all the node related systems with it. It doesn't take a genius to tell you that this alpha test has a lot of bugs. I think Steven and Intrepid did a good job communicating that this would not be a full product and would have more bugs than Narc's pizza boxes. I've seen a lot of very bad bugs and some that are just slight inconveniences. Up until this past weekend, I'd constantly get a bug where whenever I'd basic attack with my ranged weapon, I'd lose the ability to basic attack or weapon swap until I log back in. I'm sure a lot of you have little tiny small bugs you've noticed, right? I think the team has done a good job getting those bugs squashed thus far. I'm sure a lot of you have had bad or detrimental bugs still, so make sure you're reporting them. They've even made it more convenient by just adding a bug report option to the menu instead of always having to hit /bug, so this is yet another small sign of progression. In fact, Intrepid currently has a private test realm, a PTR. I have access to this PTR, it's under Visual NDA, and players here can further help test the game during the week, which has led to a lot of fixes and a lot of awesome patch notes that are implemented for the following weekend's tests. They are even willing to take servers offline during the weekend playtest to implement crucial patches. I like what I'm seeing thus far in terms of correcting issues and can't wait to see how often they do this. In conclusion, progress is very important, as the rate at which something improves can sometimes make how it started almost irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, a first impression has some weight, right? But with how quickly this MMO continuously improves, I think it's in good hands. I honestly can't tell you when this MMO will have its full release, but in my opinion, it is years from now, and I look forward to seeing the progression over time. This will probably give you an idea of how far out release is, how quickly are they fixing things, how quickly are they implementing things, are they monitoring fixes, are they doing a lot of content implementation, how many deadlines are missed versus met, and overall, how happy does the community remain? This all will in time tell us everything we need to know. Remember to leave your thoughts below on the alpha so far. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button as it helps others to find the video. Please consider subscribing, even if you just loosely want to keep an eye on Ashes of Creation. And also, an extra thank you to everyone who decided to support via Patreon, YouTube channel memberships, or by subscribing on Twitch. Thank you so much for watching. It's been nice.
So, was this a honest review? I think so. I think this was unbiased. He mentioned both issues that the game has had, as well as steps that the developers have taken to fix those issues. And he's also talked about things that are good with the game. He's talked about every facet of the game. He seems to talk about all of the different mechanics and everything in the game, as much as are implemented anyways. And he talks about both his disappointments and his hopes for the future. So I think this is an honest review. So good on you, Nice Gaming, for and the reason why I wanted to do this video was not because I've only recently been watching Nice or anything like that. It's because a lot of people I've noticed say they're giving an honest review and then only praise the game and it never anything else. So, but this was more than just praise. He talked about the good and the bad with the game. So, good on you, Nice. Good on you. Thank you all for going to my corner. I've been the DM as always. If you liked the video, hit like, hit subscribe. If you didn't like the video, hit dislike, leave a comment, let me know why. Go subscribe to Nice Gaming, and I will see you all next time.